Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I am joined by Katy Lipson. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about theatre and producing theatre. Katy is a theatre producer. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. So I run a company called Aria Entertainment. It's an independent company. We've produced countless productions, maybe over 35, 40, as well as we're running our 6th festival this September as well, which is a festival of new musicals. We focus on musical theatre, new musicals, revivals. It's just grown from year to year, and it's a very exciting time now as we're entering a new phase of developing work and bringing work to interesting spaces and not just in theatres.
How would you define a producer to someone who doesn't know what that is necessarily in theatre?
So an independent producer is someone that really has to get up in the morning, comes up with an idea to do a show, either to develop something or to come up with something that exists. It could be a play, musical, dance piece. It's then your responsibility to put everything in place to make that happen. So you need to create a budget, find a venue, raise the money, find the right creative team, engage them, contract them, find your company, and then ultimately market the show and find a way to find an audience. So you have to understand the potential of your piece, the limitations of it, where it should go. But ultimately, you need to decide if the poster's purple or green. You need to decide if it's that director or that one. All of these decisions can define whether your piece lands or not.
So when I was in New York briefly and we were talking about it, I kind of found there was this weird ecosystem of sort of off-Broadway, Broadway. They very much grow from smaller things and bigger audiences, and they upgrade theatres. Do we have that in the UK?
No, that's the problem. Like I say, Nika Burns is probably the only person recently that's picked up a show, Jamie from Sheffield Crucible. And that is one of the problems, because we're not a big country and we can't we'll go from Sheffield to the Chichester, up to there, up to there, up to there, keep working on it, use everybody's resources and money, split the cost between us all, and then land in the West End. That is not a trajectory here for musicals. It's so prevalent on Broadway.
Do you think it's because there are enough venues or size of venues, or is it a producing thing?
No, it's all those venues coming together to realise that's a really good model for them. But because there's a dominance of musicals coming through the ether on Broadway, the artistic directors, they see them all, and then the top 5, 6 venues get their pick of the one that everybody's saying, and there's that sort of energy where the whole industry go, that Come From Away, it's really, really good, oh my God.
We have Hamilton, and then we've got Dear Evan Hansen coming, I think Waitress is coming, and then Come From Away. Is there space in the West End, do you think, for these new British shows?
Well, actually, I think this is only a good thing. If we get the quality of Waitress, Come From Away, Evan Hansen and Hamilton, and we suddenly have some very unique pieces there, regardless of the hype on Broadway making them a success, are we then starting to evolve our audiences? Something I love about, I think, Waitress, Evan Hansen and Hamilton and Come From Away is they're pushing the genre. They really push the genre forward. Hamilton with its voice, Waitress, even Sarah Bareilles' composition, it's quite different the way it sounds. Evan Hansen, the way they use the protagonist, again, that poppy language of Pasek and Paul. And Come From Away, the storytelling devices of that 100-minute musical. They're just so different.
They're quite fresh and exciting.
They are fresh, and they're saying something different from a book perspective as well. It's about the story. What they feel topical, they feel relevant.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you have the Hope Mill Theatre up in Manchester.
Yeah.
Who I've noticed you kind of put on shows and kind of grow them there, and then they can come down to London. What is the kind of thinking behind that? Is that a commercial, you're kind of growing something, and then if it's successful you bring it down?
It's a good question. Hope Mill Theatre and myself, so Joseph Houston and William Welton, our collaboration was born in 2016 with production of Parade and then Hair. I don't think we could have anticipated the success of those shows at that point. I became very ambitious then and suddenly was like, okay, this space is incredible and audiences are responding to it, and I've got so many titles I want to do. This could be the home for most of Aria's shows to begin their life there before moving. We can do premieres, we can do shows that have never been to the north. So that's when we did Yank and Pippin and Little Women and Spring Awakening and Aspects, and now Return of the Soldier.
And is London still the epicentre of theatre? Is the goal to move a show to London for you, or is it to put it in front of a bigger audiences as possible?
Doesn't have to be London. It is about bigger audiences. There's completely more. I just know more about London. I don't just want to take shows from the Fringe to the Fringe now. I do want to take shows from the Fringe to London, but not in the West End, which is about finding a space where I can do the same show but have double the amount of seats and higher ticket price and for a longer run than 5 weeks. But again, you have to assess your potential. So I thought Yank would be great on the proscenium, so we went to Charing Cross. I knew that Hair should be in a dingy tunnel, so we went to the Vault. Then we did Pippin, and we went to the incredible Southwark Playhouse, which is this amazing, vibrant off-West End venue that probably has the biggest cult audience for musicals than any other theatre. And it has an actual audience, whereas in the West End, I don't think those theatres have an audience. They have a mailing list, but it's really the show that brings you in. Whereas at Southwark, there's a certain amount of audience that will go and see all of the musicals there because the tickets are cheap, previews are only £14 and they trust the programming. I do have a very clear plan now, but I think the first year it sort of just erupted into this. We just didn't realise that it would get, we didn't know audiences would come so soon after the first show, and then we realised we had the ability to do 3 other shows the next year, and then we transferred, and it just sort of spiral.
You talked a little bit about audiences. Who would you say is the audience for musical theatre in the UK? Is there a particular age bracket, a particular demographic?
No, I do think it's varied, and I do think it's to do with the title. You go to see 42nd Street and everybody generally is a little bit older. You go to see Heathers, they're probably all very young. Toxic Avenger was interesting. We had a huge age range of people come to see that. And Aspects of Love got a much older audience at Hope Mill than Spring Awakening. So it really depends on the product. I think when we can say that everybody goes through everything, in terms of in equal measure, then we know that we're evolving. Mm-hmm. We don't have a defined audience for new musicals, because until a theatre can go, here's a new musical, here's a new play, and that's seen as equal, and it doesn't surprise anybody. We don't. We're not there yet.
We are more used to in the UK revivals of musicals rather than new...
Revivals, imports and museum pieces. The new musicals are dominated on the Fringe, but as well as new musicals, we're getting the premieres of renowned American titles. They don't get a look in England apart from on our Fringe scene when a young producer gets the hand on something exciting. Flatty and Aaron's, the writers of, Once in the Silent, Anastasia, Lucky Stiff, Ragtime, to think some of their shows were premiered on the Fringe. They're not picked up commercially, they're not picked up by larger theatres, some of our most renowned writers. So,
do you think that's because the audiences just don't go out for new musicals, or not even new musicals, but something that they don't already know?
We're suffering from a backlash of 10 to 20 years of not really being engaged with that. Unless something's destiny was Broadway, it didn't really make its way here. I mean, don't get me wrong, on Broadway there are many, many shows that open and close, musicals that are not good, or they're not as good as others, and they have as many flops as our marketplace, if not more, because they have more coming to Broadway. But they do have these little nuggets that are just very exciting, that come from away. Evan Hansen, Hamilton. Wow, suddenly there's these 3 incredible pieces that couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
All taking 100% business a night.
I guess how significant do you think that making that cult following for a musical, how important is that?
It is important, especially with the youth culture. And actually, Heathers and Mean Girls are getting young and older audiences, kids that have also got into the film, because the film's sustained even though they're much younger. It's like the branding. If you've got that guerrilla marketing and you've got your evangelists all going, then it can only be a great thing. The more people talking about your show, the more buzz it's going to be. There isn't a recipe though for saying that that's going to last forever.
Yeah.
I do think that there can be a limit to that cult status. Hair's got a huge following, but never really enough to ever sustain a West End run. And Toxic Avenger had an amazing cult status. It still struggles some nights to get an audience, regardless of that buzz it had. So it's not always what people perceive as buzz isn't always what the box office is doing, and vice versa. It really depends on the specific show.
I was speaking to one of the PR people, and they said that one of the big struggles for them is getting young people to go to musical theatre. Is that something that you are conscious of?
I'm quite unique in the sense that I've done very short runs in a Southwark type venue, which probably does have quite young clientele who can pay £14 to see a musical that they love. I think the Toxic Avengers did struggle at the Arts because young people weren't going because it was too expensive. Addams Family, we saw a lot of young audiences through Carrie Hope Fletcher's audience and just families who loved it as a family show. I mean, it really depends. I have struggled for aspects of Love. I really didn't see a lot of younger people. That was quite curious because I thought that Hope Mill had those people that would come anyway because they loved everything else. I do think it's a genuine concern on the commercial level, but I don't necessarily see the impact so much because I'm doing a lot of shows for smaller runs in smaller venues.
So you mentioned Carrie in Addams Family, and now she's in Heathers. How much is social media and following becoming a consideration as a producer?
Well, I didn't really know anything about Carrie Hope Fletcher's following before, her name was mentioned as a possible Wednesday. It didn't really, she was so right for the part regardless. And had she had only 10,000 followers or 20,000, it probably wouldn't have mattered. But I was surprised how impactful it was. I was, wow, okay. Because I'd never really understood having 1 million followers meant. I don't get up in the morning thinking of a casting and then a show. I always think about the show, and I always say to the casting director, just get me a list of anybody that's right for this show, including people with profile, and then I look at that list with the rest of the team, and my first decision is who can actually do this. But yeah, the Carrie was very unique, and it blew my mind. I think she is unique. I don't think there's many people like Carrie who are super talented, super lovely, and has people that admire and look up to her and follow her and come and see her and things. It's quite incredible. And it's amazing she's playing roles like that, cult roles. Wednesday Addams and then Heathers.
She's almost building a brand for herself as much as the musicals are.
Yeah, but I think she's genuinely drawn to those parts. She's a musical theatre geek like anyone, and she loved it. She loved Addams, she loved Heathers, and it's just a dream, I guess, that she gets to play the roles as well. They're things she looked to do since doing Les Mis and the shows that have been around for a long time. But it's about a package. And as a producer, I work with other producers in my team, and we all have to sit around a table and go, yeah, that's the right casting.
Last thing I kind of wanted to touch on was how people get into theatre. So maybe we could start with acting.
Depending on where you're at with your career, if you're leaving school and you want to train to be an actor, then you have to know the business. So start to look at the sort of schools you might want to go to and train at, and look at people's responses that have been there. Did they enjoy their training? What did they cover? Who recommends one school over the other? If it gets to the point where you haven't got in that college, you're going, oh, I haven't got in drama school, but I really want to do it, you've got to find something else to do, and you've got to look at the reasons why you might have not been accepted this year and what you can do to go again next year, and what you're going to fill your life with in that year to grow as a person. So it's really important to remember that life is hopefully long, and it's not all about getting in at 18, and that's not always the right path, for everybody. Some people thrive going at 23 because they've had life experience. So keep an open mind. There's so many things you can achieve in life. But if you want to do it, you will do it. I've got friends that didn't get a professional job till they were 30. In terms of a paid acting job, and now they're in from West End to West End. So in terms of getting in my shows, and I do lots of talks to actors about this, Jane Deach, who I work with a lot, she might get 2,000 people at a role. So she might tend to look at people she's seen before, agents she trusts. She might respond to a personal letter or personal invite. You've got to know your industry, know who your people are, who's casting you, what's the role. I've tried to get as much knowledge as I can on my business. You have to do the same for yours.
In terms of then getting into producing and that side of thing, and more the kind of behind the scenes of a show,
I do think my path was a bit crazy.
Yeah.
I do think it was. I just launched in and started doing shows on the Fringe. That's quite bold, really, to do that. And you think you have all the answers and you realise you have none, and you learn every time from your mistakes. So I would say find out what you really love, and you might need to discover it. So if that's you go and do some internships for a few months with different sorts of companies to teach you more about yourself.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say for you, what's next? What do you want to be in 5 years?
I want to have produced a new show from scratch that I've commissioned. So I want to do what I'm doing now, but I want to see the trajectory of a new British musical that I've developed, and I would like to have that go all the way to being commercial success. So I'm creating a show that I want audiences to see. So I think Aria will continue to do what it's doing. We'll do less revivals, more new. We might ultimately do less content because we're developing behind the scenes. Yeah, next year's a really exciting year, and I can't say much more than watch this space. There's many things you can read about on my website or on Southwark Playhouse's website.
Okay.
So see you there.
Wonderful. I'll leave a link to Katy's website at Aria Entertainment and your Twitter as well and everything if you want to follow for all the updates about what's going on. And yes, I think that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to watch more of me, I'm going to leave another video around here. That's all that's left for me to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.